Notation of councillors in attendance.
I do.
Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of the agenda? Moved by councillor Forbes. Second by councillor Ennis. Any question on the agenda? None, all those in favour?
Aye.
I'm reminded if any, motion carried. Do we have any declaration of conflicts of interest this evening? Hearing none, we're good. Correspondence, there's none. So in new business, we have Marika Chaplin, Keswick River Society. Come right on up, Marika. Keswick River 2024 water quality results. So we're anxious to hear what you can tell us. And I think you've met all the councillors, but we'll just go around. We have Wayne Ennis, Councillor Ward 6. We have Sheriff Forbes, Ward 5. Myself, all wards. Councillor Edwards, Ward 2, and Councillor Brownlow, Ward 1. Deputy Mayor Brownlow, Ward 1, excuse me. I'm still getting used to this after 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, oh, congratulations.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Feel free to ask questions at any point in the presentation. I don't have anything too, I mean, it is fairly formal, but it's not that formal. I just wanted to draw your attention to the watershed boundaries for the Keswick River. So the watershed is bounded in green, and some people aren't as familiar with the term watershed, but you can think of it like a roof, and your roof has a peak, and so water on one side of the peak flows in one direction and another direction from the other side. So the peak is the top of the watershed, and so that's the outer edge of the green. So all the water that lands on the roof of the watershed comes eventually into the Keswick and into the St. John and Woolastock.
Could I ask you how many acres that would be?
Oh, I did say questions would be open. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
It is something I could look if I pulled out my mapping, but I don't have that.
I just wondered about the watershed drain, how many acres?
Yeah. I can get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Very good question.
Marika, we now have Councillor Brewer.
Hi.
Ward 3.
So I have been, the Keswick River Society has been around since 1992, and as we were talking about earlier, it's got a long and very successful history. I have a binder here and some information as well. You have some information also. So it was established in 1992 and includes the protection and management of wetlands and watercourses, instrumental to maintaining and improving New Brunswick's resilience against the impacts of climate change. It was settled 11,000 years ago or more and is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik people. And there have been major kind of alterations of the landscape that began in the 18th century that consisted of primarily, I guess, of agricultural and forestry operations or logging. To speak a little bit about the river, it's always important, especially with the Keswick, which is very interesting, goes back and forth a lot, especially in the lower watershed, and so you see a lot of different geomorphology. So it relates to partially to the amount of vegetation that is along the watershed, because obviously if you have areas along the river that don't have vegetation, they're more likely to erode. And so that's one part of geomorphology. And also to note that rivers are naturally dynamic systems. And we used to paddle the river every year, and especially in the spring, you notice how much, how many trees are in the river and how some of those banks get really eroded. So these habitat features it's also important to consider that rivers are very important for all the different organisms that live in them. And so there's a whole range, be it aquatic organisms or species that would live in the riparian areas. So the riparian areas would be the areas that are close to the river but not within the river, and then even the buffers beyond those riparian areas. So that's really what the water quality is looking at. It's like, how do the human impacts affect the water quality, and how can we keep track of them over time? The important thing, because I used to work with Nashwauk watershed, and this is a very important thing to remember when landowners would come to us and would generally, we would get some landowners that would be upset because they own property that was close to a river and they were losing their river, it was eroding at a certain rate. And it's, I think, it's never good to tell it to someone in those particular terms, but like, it is part of nature. Like, rivers are very dynamic systems, and you never know if you're gonna get a heavy snowfall year, like heavy rains all at once. That can create a huge, huge result downstream. And what you do upstream impacts your downstream, and so there's a lot of dynamics to it. And then this just also talks about the riffle pool and the run dynamics of a river. That's it. Thank you. This is very cool to have an automatic move ahead thing. So a little bit about cold water streams. So some of the sites that I sampled at last year were in the headwaters, which is a very interesting place to sample because you get a flavor for, in the case of the Keswick, there's a fair bit of forestry in the headwaters. Fair bit to huge amount. So that's a factor to look at. And then another factor is if they have a lot of vegetation, a lot of shading, they tend to be quite cool, which is a very good thing because salmon and trout, salmonids in general, they get stressed over 20 degrees Celsius. And so those cool water streams are very important, and anything basically under 20 degrees throughout the summer is what you're looking for. So if you're getting over 20, and I've got some results on that that I'll present a little bit later, is going to be stressing out the fish. Now luckily fish can move, but still if you're getting a one-day result of over 20, that means that it's likely much more than one single day. And so it's important to look after the headwaters. Because when we were out on the trip, a lot of our neighbors, one of their bigger concerns was the amount of logging in the watershed over time, right? Because that impacts everything downstream. And so it's you don't want to forget about that feature, I guess. And you do want to try to protect your vegetation and also the riffle run pool dynamics. So. Once again, just a bit more about small streams. They're very good for spawning fish nurseries. They support animals that don't occur in larger streams. They also provide that thermal refugia for fish. So where I mentioned, like if it gets really hot in the summer, it gives a place for the fish to go. So very, very important. Of course, that helps the larger tributaries in the river be more resilient to variations in terms of climate change. So what can go wrong? This is just in general what can go wrong. This isn't specific to the Keswick River. But definitely land use changes can impact the water flow and the sediment supply. And you can see if the change occurs in a fairly, how would you say, like, if human impact hasn't been too great, then it can be a fairly stable, and the watershed can adapt to it. But if things happen very quickly, that can lead to instability. So rapid change can cause more degradation, more erosion, and that kind of thing. As mentioned earlier, if you remove vegetation from the side of a river and you have more impervious surfaces such as paved roads, probably not such a big issue in the Keswick, like relative to more populated areas, then you're going to see more flashy flooding events in rivers. You're going to see low flow between storms and more erosion, so wide, shallow streams and elevated temperatures. So it's all kind of connected. Now, in terms of elevated temperatures, I just wanted to say a little bit more about temperatures as for a lot of people, especially if you're an angler, it's a concern. And the reality is that increased water temperatures caused by climate change and altered land use practices can be a limiting factor for salmon populations. They can create stress, delay migration, and reduce available habitat. As mentioned, like if they can't go, generally what you see is like, your smaller tributaries will be cooler and the main stem will be warmer, so those fish will be having to move to the cooler streams and out of the main stem. And so salmon also require clean, cold, and well oxygenated water, as do all aquatic species, most all aquatic species. I think there's a few that are adapted to low oxygen environments, but and so of course clean water is one of our most important resources, and I don't think we can ever forget that. It's pretty awesome that we have this river and that we have abundant water in our province. Like, it's amazing. I always loved having our well water to drink since I moved to town. I'm upset by the amount of chlorine in the water, so enjoy your well water. So in 2024, we resumed water sampling at 10 sites in the watershed. These were developed in conjunction with the Department of Environment and Local Government, because the thinking there is that the water quality hasn't been done for quite some time on the river. Like going back to the earlier days of the society when the Keswick was selected as one of the, I forget the right word, but they were selected for the water classification process. So I think there was a fair bit of funding available in those days, and that was when the province was going to classify the water courses. Now, unfortunately, that process never got completed for, I believe, political reasons. But still, it was a valuable step in the right direction, because you want to keep track of your water quality over time. You want to try to see issues or identify things that might create issues in the future. Like, I'm sure we've all heard of big scares with water, like Walkerton and other places. Like, you don't want boil orders or anything. You want to be aware of your local environment. So the sampling consists of baseline sampling, so looking at the physical parameters and the bacterial E. coli data. And it's helpful to know what normal levels are. I think I already said that. All of the waters, I think I'll come to that later. Yeah, that's probably good. This is a map. You were asking, Honorable Mayor, about the area involved, and so that's where I can get back to you on the area. But this is a different version of the map here on the front page. So it's taken from, it's actually in Google Earth Pro. So it might be a little bit hard to, I don't want to get in the way of that camera. So the sampling sites are indicated for the most part in this green color. So the first site, Keswick 1, they're numbered, they're numbered from the bottom, and the numbers increase going upstream. So this is sampling site Keswick 1, it's here at the mouth of Keswick, and then there's, cool. And then there's Atlantic Poultry, there's one, which I think is right around here. Up in Burt's Corner, there's one. There are actually two. There's one on the, there's one right on the Trip Settlement Bridge. And then there's two up here in Zealand. And you just can't see because of the resolution. And then obviously two here. This is the one that's, I believe, on the Grub Road. And this one here is up on Howard Brook. So there's a good range of sampling sites. And the sampling site Keswick 2 is the same one that the Department of Environment samples at. I think they sample every 2 weeks, or I forget their frequency. But the idea is that you'd have data that kind of builds on their data. So anyway, these sites were developed with their kind of input, I guess. Yeah. Are there any questions at this point in time? So what do we measure? We measure water temperature, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, metals, pH, dissolved solids, nutrients, and E. coli. And so there are 10 sampling sites in the watershed, and each site has one, 3 bottles. So there's the red top bottle, the medium-sized bottle, and the third. And so they're all completely disinfected bottles provided by the Research Productivity Council. They come from them, and as soon as we can, we get them back to them for the analysis. So we conduct grab samples. So as I mentioned, these samples are taken close to the surface of the water. So generally what I do is if it's cooler, mostly it's not so great for just walking into, I'll have my waders and I'll walk into kind of the center of the water course, dip the sample in just below the surface of the water and fill it up. Like you keep the sample underwater the whole time, and then you put the lid on underwater as well, just to make sure you're just getting the sample. And in addition, the Department of Environment has lent us 2 meters, which are actually probably about $5,000 in total, which is amazing. They just lend it seasonally. So the YSI and dissolved oxygen meters. And they're lowered into the water, yep. And then these, just a little bit more detail on the parameters, but we probably don't need to go into detail on them because I don't want to take up more time than needed. So a little bit about the results. Now, there are a whole lot of parameters that are measured. So what I did is I just made up slides for some of them. Some of the ones that probably would be the more significant, if you would call that. So, hello. Dissolved oxygen is one of them. And that is obviously much like humans. Anything living needs a certain amount of oxygen to survive. Same for aquatic species. And so there is the federal limit. It's called the Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment. Sets a limit of 6.5 milligrams per liter that you need to have for protection of life for all stages. And as you can see on this graph here, this is 6.5 limit, and the dissolved oxygen are these black dots. So all of the sites for all this, from May to September, were above the limit. So that's good. So very nice to know that. And as well, that graph does have temperature on it as well. So just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there are some sites that are over 20 degrees, which honestly it's not terrible, but there are like 5 of them. 20 degrees from May to September. So I should say a little bit more. It really doesn't show you in this graph, but 1 bar represents a month. So this is May, June, July, or how did it go? May, because it was end of May. Yeah, anyway, May, June, July, September. There were 4 different rounds of it, and then the same for Keswick 2. So it's kind of like basically every month there was a sampling round done. And then for E. coli, this is obviously looking at bacteria, and it's important to keep track of your bacterial counts for sure. I do actually have a slight amendment to this slide in that there are 2 different kind of exceedances for E. coli, and this one here, the one at Zealand, Keswick 5, actually for recreation it does exceed the limit for recreation. So it's just, and that happened once in the summer. I wonder if I don't think I have it in my notes, but if anyone's very interested in it, it's probably in July. Like generally you see your exceedances in the middle of summer, not so likely in September. But, oh no, it said it's May, sorry, my bad on that. So that, yeah, I apologize about that. It's kind of a fact-finding mission in some ways, because the province has a slightly different way of looking at E. coli. And then I talked a little bit to a few other watershed groups, and like, we actually are looking at this 235 amount because, you know, a lot of people are recreating, and you hear now about cyanobacteria and stuff like that. So you really want to be honest and cautious where needed. Anyway.
Is there any explanation why that's so high, that one?
Well, so sometimes you get a high E. coli. No, there's no direct for sure, right? Because you're getting a sample at one point in time. But it could be things like stuff upstream. You know, it could be, as we know, like there's a few industries in the river, in the watershed. It could be like septic stuff, right? It could be, sometimes you'll even see it on smaller tributaries. It could just be like animal poop in the river. I don't know that that would be the case, particularly at Zealand, because, you know, it's a fairly larger part of the water course. It could be people using rivers for a non-intended purpose. But yeah, I don't know, like it's a range of possibilities, but I think it's something to be a little careful of. Like hopefully we'll get funding next year and to keep a closer eye on that. Because if it becomes a pattern, then you're like, okay, every year this Zealand is exceeding recreational water quality. Well, you know, I know where the boat launches are in place. That could be a factor. If someone comes back and they've got rash or skin rash, because not everyone is affected, right? But some people are quite sensitive. So you could be like, well, we did notice that in May of whatever, Keswick River Society said that there was a high level of E. coli, right? I don't know if you want to say that or not. Yes.
So Green Hill Lake runs into the
Yes.
Keswick, right?
It
So
does.
could it be affected from that? Because that would flow into the Zealand area.
Yeah, Green Hill Lake is in the watershed, for sure. Possibility, right?
Yeah, because there's the forks there and.
Yeah, and there would be more, yeah, it could be, like, that's the hardest part of knowing for sure, right? Like non-point source pollution is a tricky one to figure out. But overall, I do have to say about E. coli, like, overall the picture is good. There was one exceedance over the entire May to September at 10 different sampling sites, so overall it's good. For phosphorus, so there was one exceedance, and that was Howard Brook in Haynesville, and that was, I think it's up at 0.4, so it was up, it was a little bit elevated, and then there was one that was, the one at the mouth of Keswick is the one that was the higher amount. And that makes sense, because oftentimes you'll see, like, there's more stuff that's come downstream, so that's why you might see more phosphorus. And that would include, you know, I don't know for sure, but like there is Atlantic poultry is just up above.
There's a lot of farms toward the end of the Keswick.
Yeah, there's so that's most likely the case. Nitrogen, there again, this is an important thing to keep an eye on, because it could come from manure and fertilizer in runoff. So for aquatic life, there were just a couple exceedances for the Keswick River at Route 104. That is a site that's just above Atlantic Poultry, and for Millbrook in Haynesville. And that place, I don't know why that spot is funny, but the water always looks a little murky there. And there's a house just above it. I don't know if it's that, but just by observation, it doesn't surprise me too heavily. So all data is available in perpetuity on Atlantic Data Stream. I don't know, if you don't mind really quickly, Duncan, check going on the website, or maybe it's not necessary. I do want to show you about, if you ever want to look at these results, because if someone comes to you and asks, I don't know, we can navigate to the website and then to Atlantic Data Stream. So if you see the tab and you see water quality, and scroll down a little bit more, we're nearly there. Atlantic Data Stream is that middle blue thing, yeah. So, and the Map and Visualize tab. So what's cool here, you can do this for a whole bunch of rivers in New Brunswick. So the graph that's coming up now is looking at pH. So it's got all the sampling sites to the left, which is pretty cool. And then you can look up any number, you can decide what chart you want, what characteristics you want, like pH is one of them, but there's a whole bunch of different ones. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that, because And actually, if you don't mind, Duncan, just scrolling down here a bit, not all the sampling sites, if you click on these last 5, just on the dot, I think they're turned off. Then you can see all of the, I don't know, I think that this is what people automatically go to, so I just want to make you aware that if you were to go there, you need to make sure they're all colored, and that will give you the, anyway, it's quite a lot of good information, because all of this is publicly available data, and one of the concerns sometimes is like at the provincial level, it's not all publicly available. And so Atlantic Data Stream is all about having that accessible to anyone that wants it. Thank you for navigating there. I just find it's nice to have information, and seeing as how it is there now, it did take quite a while. And then very quickly, this water quality report card, which is just nearly done, is like an annual report. We can just zip over that one. And it talks about some of the things. Most importantly, it offers a water quality summary. So the darn thing about water quality and sampling is there's a huge amount of data. And to most people, it's like, so the water quality index is very valuable because you can take a certain number of parameters, in this case 10, that we took for the, to do the exercise, and you get basically get a report card out of it. So overall, in 2024, the water was considered excellent, which is really good. And that's based on those parameters that were selected. They're the same parameters that the province uses. And there were only 2 places here that were in the good, and that was Keswick 10, which is, Keswick 10, I just double check. Haynesville, that's Howard Brook in Haynesville, and Millbrook in Haynesville. Sorry, Haynesville. But that's still good. Good is a great result. So overall, I think it's a very nice report to be delivering to you. But we still have to remember that with clean water being one of our most important resources, there are always things that we can do to protect, restore, and keep an eye on what we love. So these are just a few tips here. Greening the shoreline, as in planting trees, and I know the Society's done a lot of that in the past. It doesn't need to be around the water course, like plant trees on your properties. Everything is connected, as you see, even if you're not right on the river. The benefits of trees are going to impact the environment in general. Fencing water courses near farms, super helpful. Keeping sewage out of the river, reducing chemical inputs, reducing impervious surfaces, and learning more about your watershed and its uses. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Environmental Trust Fund for making this work possible.
Thank you so much, Rita.
Yeah.
I've lived around the Keswick River my entire life. I've learned a few things about it tonight that I wasn't aware of, so I really appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned Millbrook and, what was it, Haynesville?
Yeah.
How close is Crab Mountain to that?
Well, those are the closest sites to Crab Mountain. Millbrook is before Crab Mountain, and Howard Brook is on the other side. Like once you get beyond Crab Mountain, it's that first road to the right. It's the big logging road. It's way up there. That sampling site.
That's what they call the Mill Road?
Sorry, what do you call it?
The Valley Forest Road.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, it's very cool driving that road when I finish the sampling. It's very cool to see Crab Mountain from that particular view. It's quite beautiful in the summer.
It is.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I certainly enjoyed your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, reach out if you have any questions, and thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Do they do that on the St. John River?
Well, on the Willis stuff, there are some watersheds are represented by watershed groups.
Certain parts.
certain parts. The province has their own sampling sites, but they're not as numerous. So you'll see, like, for example, I think they have one sampling site on the Keswick. As, you know, so it's kind of like a volume thing, right? Because it's, one isn't probably quite enough when you're looking at the variety. So it complements to the province's data. So I think that's a valuable thing.
You're welcome to stay if you'd like to read it, but you don't have to, it's your
I heard there's
choice.
some exciting things going on.
We've only got 5 minutes or so left, but just another thing for new business. There's an infrastructure committee at the Capital Service Commission in another few days. I'm on that committee, and the topic's going to be the trails system around the 14 municipalities, and also connectivity is a big thing on the connectivity that Gemtech is working on. I don't know what Gemtech will present that day, but I'll bring it back to council. But I'd just like for this group of councillors here to be, just get on your mind of what you would, I guess, what you would think of the trails and what more we could offer, or how the connectivity could be with other municipalities. I think we have some with Nacoic maybe. Is there any with Nashua?
No official trails connecting.
And
Snowmobile trail does over time, but that's not accessible, so.
I don't know how the city's gonna change, or if they are, because they don't like motorized vehicles, so. But anyway, the city has a representative on the infrastructure committee, so we'll see what they have to say. But does anyone have any comments on it this evening that you'd like to put forth that I could take to the infrastructure committee, or?
No.
No? Okay, I'll bring you back lots of information, and you may have questions.
Would they consider that forest trail at the park now that they're skating on? Is that considered a trail?
I will let you know what Gemtech has determined, because they've been consulted to do all 13 municipalities in the rural district, so we'll see what they present to us in a few days at the Service Commission. So. Does anyone else have any short topic for meeting? Still got maybe another 3 or 4 minutes. All good?
Good.
Okay. Can I have a motion for adjournment? Moved by Councilor Edwards,